Hello, I'm Lucy James. I am joined here by Rob Crossley. Hello, Rob.
Hello.
And I recently got to play Resident Evil HD. So this is the remastered HD shiny version, but not of the 1996 original game.
Okay.
So the game was remade for the GameCube in 2002. So this is a nice and shiny new version of that.
So it's a remaster of a remake of an original.
Pretty much, yes. But you can see, so the original version, the PS1 version, we had a little look before we started recording this, had, like live action people doing this cutscene, which looked incredible. But now we have, proper video game people.
Yeah, so we've gone from live action, actual filming to CG stuff. And I remember when actually playing the PS1 version, and it was kind of like, it was amazing to see like actual footage inside a video game. So they've kind of gone back a step from that with just, instead doing CG, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And so I played this game probably for about an hour and a half. So this is obviously the opening cutscene. That looks quite nice. I played for an hour and a half, and it is really a very kind of strange... I'm more used to the modern Resident Evil, so this is a very weird mix of old and new.
Right.
Because you still have the fixed camera angles from the original, which... If you're not used to those, it makes life really quite difficult, especially when you first encounter a few zombies. And luckily, because I edited this video, I've made it so I look really good.
Okay, so what bits did you not put in the video?
My first encounter when I couldn't figure out that, so right trigger I thought was shoot, like in every game ever. It's not, it's map.
Right, okay.
So I managed to get rid of like a whole chunk of that. So it's a kind of strange mix between old and new. But obviously, the more you play it, the more you get used to it. And I guess, because we still have the build in the office, when you play it, it'll be like kind of going home.
Of course, yeah. But although the decoration is a bit better this time.
Yeah, sure. Oh, and so here's our first look at the famous carnivorous dogs. And so there is Jill. So I played as Jill throughout my playthrough. Who do you normally pick?
I normally pick Jill as well, actually.
So I did notice that Jill has jiggle physics.
Right. See, I don't actually remember that. Now, I played this when I was like 13 years old, so I should remember that, right? I should never forget that. But yeah, so she has... How did that feel? Was that a bit awkward?
You know what? They're not dead or alive levels.
Right,
So
okay.
it's not so bad. It's kind of forgivable. Jiggle physics.
Forgivable jiggle physics.
Oh dear. So we're kind of coming in. This is Bravo team's helicopter coming in. So, ooh, who's that? Uh-oh.
That's Chris Redfield, right?
He kind of looks like he's... oh, there's Wesker.
See, that's the very first time we've seen Wesker, right? This legendary character in the series.
Yeah.
This is his introduction.
And he's kind of a badass.
Yeah, he's like awesome throughout the entire series.
And there is the infamous mansion.
If you're being chased by a pack of dogs, would you run into a haunted mansion?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Especially when it looks... Oh, enter the survival horror. So what's really cool is they have this mix of, obviously, the famous loading screens, which were the opening doors. They've left those in. And if you go back and look at the original and, especially the original mansion and how blocky it was... And I mean, it was 1996, obviously, but the difference is kind of astounding. It looks great.
Yeah, just comparing this to the PlayStation original, I mean, it was stark by comparison. There wasn't much detail, there wasn't much furniture or anything, and this is, I mean, it's actually quite an improvement on the GameCube version, right?
So this is where my handy editing comes in use. So this is the famous zombie turnaround.
If you're not convinced it's a zombie yet.
Yeah.
Here we go.
There it is. Needs to go to a dentist. So you see that again, a lovely cut where it makes me look like an absolute badass.
So how did the controls feel at this point? Because obviously now that you're moving around the mansion, you do like hard camera cuts, right?
Oh my, yes.
Right.
So interestingly, I'm more familiar with the more modern Resident Evil. So 4 onwards, I would say, and especially 6. I think the biggest thing I found is that 6 is very, very hand-holdy. It's like button prompts everywhere and all this kind of stuff.
Sure.
And so then going back to the original, even though this is a remake, it just feels like I don't know what I'm doing because there's no prompts telling me you know, to open a door or something. Because in modern games, if a prompt immediately doesn't come up, you assume that, oh, this door's locked, you can't get past. But in Resident Evil, that's not the case, except it's probably locked.
So with the controls, I recall correctly, you press up to move in the direction that the character is facing, right?
Yes, but that gets confusing when the camera obviously hard cuts and you seem to be facing a different direction. So this little bit here, obviously some of the puzzle elements, which is still really cool. So getting an arrow that I found in the mansion and sort of taking it apart and then using it to get into this area and getting this Book of Curses.
Placed delicately on the table
Yeah.
there.
And I've got to tell you, it took me a depressingly long amount of time to realise there was a key on it.
Oh.
Because of course, obviously, it's all about examining.
I forgot about that. You actually have to inspect the items, which is actually a really cool element, right?
Oh, and there's the famous dog through the window.
You're shooting the floor.
Which I hit it. So in the GameCube version, they kind of put in this defensive weapon version, this defensive weapon thing. So if you got attacked, in the PS1 version, you'd be pretty screwed. In the GameCube version onwards, you could equip a defensive weapon. I think that you could only use once, and so Jill and Chris can both use a dagger. But then later on, Jill gets this kind of stun gun thing, and like a taser. Chris gets a stun grenade that you can like shove in the mouth of the zombie, which is quite cool. So there's another little loading screen, which I thought it's nice. I thought it's nice. Kind of it builds to the tension as well.
Yeah, it's an homage to the original, and yeah, absolutely agree with you on building the tension. So this is one of the save rooms, right?
Yes.
There's always a calming presence to the save rooms, isn't there?
Yeah, and I mean that's something that Shinji Mikami's used in The Evil Within as well. Have you seen? So the save rooms kind of play this like classical music, and it feels safe, but you kind of know that it's not. And so obviously you have a very limited amount of things that you can carry. This is me kind of messing around and depositing things that I probably should have kept. This is quite cool. So I left this bit in, especially because it's just... I mean, at this point I was getting quite rattled because I was trying to get a very specific thing.
Oh, right. Oh, I remember this now.
Yeah.
Of course. How could I forget?
It's just, yeah, the slow walk, which is really cool.
So are we defining these as zombies, the undead?
Well, that's the thing. Even Resident Evil changes. Oh, yep. Once more, just to make sure.
Of course.
Because
you have to reserve your ammo in this game.
I've been burnt before.
Right, of course.
And then, yeah, there's another guy. Oh, I tried to examine him. Nothing there. Because normally you'd have something pop up that say, you know, check out what this guy's carrying.
I've got to say, it does look absolutely beautiful, doesn't it? You've done a great job.
Toilet, gonna need that in a second.
Yeah, and...
Because do you remember this
run
bit?
a bath as well. Oh, yeah.
So it's quite nice to see what they've done with all the kind of the famous big scary moments of the game. They are still quite... Yeah, there it is. Terrifying even now. And so yeah, they love the coming around the corner and seeing the kind of the hard cut and you can't get away and it's all, yeah, it's great. Look, badass. Down in one.
Well.
Except apart from that bit.
No, there's a famous line in this as well called the Jill sandwich, right? Tell us about that.
So the Jill sandwich is a terrible line of dialogue from the original game, which occurs after this cutscene. So I painstakingly went through to find it. So Jill's caught in a room, the ceiling's coming down, Barry's coming to save her. Let's watch this play out because the Jill sandwich is iconic.
Barry.
That was a close one. A second late, you would have fit nicely into a sandwich.
Really?
Which, admittedly, it's no, you were almost a Jill sandwich. Because this is a remake of the GameCube version, so sadly they did redo the dialogue. But it's still a pretty great line.
Absolutely.
So the HD version of Resident Evil is coming out on PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and PC at some point in 2015. So for more on Resident Evil, make sure you keep your eye on GameSpot.